Takes his old ugly self over there. I'm talking about. So, actually, we lost the case. Y'all did not lose the case. Y'all did not lose the case. She pulled a tactic. All you had to do was wait. He go on to say, listen, she's confident that he'll change his mind. I wasn't going to say anything, but I felt like I need to tell y'all because I'm not sure if her confidence is overly confident or not. So you go snitch to Massa and the overseer. Tommy, you gonna be called to my office in about half a second. So they thank him for giving them that information. And folks will say he keeps standing like a Marvel villain, and he literally is. Tragic. So yes, as they exit, now we back on over to Ozzy. And he clicking out because folks is going ham online, of course, as they do and gon' do. He looking at a video where Cash Doll is repeating. Well, they done edited for her to repeat it over and over again. She's saying bum ass boyfriend, bum ass boyfriend, bum ass boyfriend. Oh. But everybody trying to reassure him that everything gonna be okay. Monica steps in like his Coretta Scott King, honey, telling him that he is Ozzy Edwards, America's superstar, and he is about to land the biggest franchise that anybody's ever seen since MCU. Just as she say that. LAPD. Honey. You should have been fresh as hell because the feds is watching. They ain't just watching. They is knocking down the door. They is coming in with their guns at and in his face. They is searching things. They got warrants. They got other further documentation. And they got rights and reasons to be digging through his things because they say he was holding like he just went pro. Little did he know he was flossing her dough. Nah, her phone was found or it signaled off or whatever. It bing, ping, ding. Find her iPhone or whatever. It went off over there at the house. So now they over there looking for the phone and any more electronic devices that they can find. And now we just see him up there looking like he just totally clicking out. And again, it is mirroring Jackson away. Jax, honey. Of course they got different faces and they be making different faces and shit like that. But you know how Jax will go in the bathroom and like right before it's kind of fucked up to laugh at this because like it's a real thing for people to have panic attacks and you know be masking and then they like go into a room and then they break down and whatnot. But Jax will like right before she walks into the room, she's like, "Oh yes, it's fine. I'll be right in a minute." And she goes in and she closes the door and then is literally the drastic opposite on the other side. She literally be looking like she finna have a heart attack. And it's fucked up because she could literally have a heart attack from doing it. But that's what humor is. Humor is a release from things that don't make no sense. That's complicated and complex. So yeah. Anywho. So as he is about to click out, we transition back to Jax again. Also looking at all of the footages. And as she is looking at the footages and scrolling through, looking at the comments and everything, everybody is pretty much against Ozzy and sympathetic for Cash Doll and Wendy's sister. So Lewis hit her up in the midst. He like, sorry I ain't called. We trying to put the nursery together. We trying to sort through all of the things and seem like we making out pretty good. She ain't really trying to hear that. But she texts him and say, "Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know." Child, she get up and start pacing. Once again, phone goes off. And who it be? Who that is? It's just her baby daddy. No, it's not. It's Cash. And he is outside. And she go outside. He like, I just thought I'd wait out here, after the last time. Last time is when Louis stepped to him. Okay. So he was like, he thought he waited outside after the last time. She like, let me guess, Ozzy called you. He said, yeah. He wants you back. She said, I bet. I know. I'm sure. Okay? Between the police interview and all of them footages and stuff, and the night that she went missing, honey, I would say he needs to play by my rules, which I doubt he can. And as she's saying that, he rolls down the window, lets her know, look, it wouldn't be the first time somebody underestimated me. So, I guess that's to say, he ready to act right. So, he say, all he need is 10 minutes, and you gon' feel this shit from beginning to end, and put your head on the chopping block with 40 Glock. Zoom, 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 zoom. Got eyes real. I can't say that word. And at that rate, that means I need to shut up and move on to the next scene. So, child, he get in his house, sit down, and he started talking about a comment that he saw online from a lady that said that she met him at the airport and he was like a major dick and all of this and that and the third. And he was like, he remembers that day vividly because he had just got a call. He was on the way to see his sick grandma. And then when he got off the plane, his mama called and said that she died. And to, at least he's going to make it to the Choice Awards or whatever. And, then the lady come out and it's like, pow, pow, gotcha. That's one of the catch lines from the show that he was on. And so, yeah, he was like, the lady come out of nowhere and, like gleefully said his catchphrase to him. And, of course, he was not responsive in a gleeful manner as he was grieving. So, of course, his point, as he says, is that lady took, a couple of seconds from, a moment out of, their lives that they experienced each other and equated it to his entire character. Yes. The reason why I am stoic about this is because I feel like he's being manipulative. And he very much so communicated all of this in the manner of, mommy, look at what they said about me. Look at what they're doing to me. And granted, the position he's in, it makes sense. House and ever. I would more expect for you to enter like, I apologize for my arrogance and how I came off. I apologize for not listening to you, for downplaying what you was talking about or what you was telling me to do. I apologize. And I now realize that I was wrong and you are right. And I am here now, ready to listen and follow directions. I guess now for the 5th time given, if you so decide to agree to keep giving. But instead, you enter with a sob story. I pick up on shit like that. Because you owe her an apology, sir. And you know that. That's why you should have been there and using your 10 minutes to apologize. not sob story and guilt trip her and pity party her because people saying fucked up shit about you online. I'm sure that's not the first time some motherfucker said some fucked up shit about you online. Now, granted, I'm sure he was the fan favorite type shit, so he may have been seeing overwhelming amounts of appreciation before. However, all at the same time, I'm pretty sure you have always known that heavy is the head that wears the crown. In that position, you always got people saying fucked up shit about you as well. So, that was also, I feel like, generic. So, like, again, I feel like he's used a real story and a real comment for a situation that is not in correlation to the reality that he's speaking on. For example, that comment is a comment that he could have seen at any time. We have no confirmation that that comment came from this situation. Like, specifically, I met him at the airport. He was an asshole. Because I believe he said the comment said that they bet that he killed her and all this other stuff because he was an asshole at the airport. He could have added all that shit on. Anyway, he could have improvised all of that. So, yeah. Anywho. But, yeah. Like I said, for example, that comment could have been left at any time. And so, he could be using it for this real situation that he's in, where there could very well be people like Jax said to him. Jax said to him that people would be microanalyzing past experiences and observations of him, seeing if there's anything that they can pick up on in hindsight. So that would also make me feel like not only are you repurposing real shit from the past, but you're also doing what a lot of men tend to do, which is repeating something Jack said to you as if you discovered it for yourself. And it's similar to what Tommy was over there doing with the partners. He didn't repeat what she said, in the manner of, something he discovered for himself. However, this questioning of her competency, even though it is you that very clearly needs her, you're coming to her, but still you feel this need to undermine her. Even in this moment, he's undermining her because you owe her an apology. You should be apologizing, but instead you are guilt tripping and manipulating her. Interesting. And dropping baggage on her, trauma dumping on her. As we proceed to give you R&B, mother, what you need. So Jax gets lost in the sauce with it, of course, because she's puppeteered by the penis, honey. And she goes to telling him, oh, you just stay here for the night. And granted, she may not be saying it exactly in this tone, but the energy transfer that I pick up is, oh, it's okay. Put your head in my bosom, baby. You can stay here for the night. Hey, go lay down in the guest room. And I will tuck you in, which she did. And I'll bring you some milk and cookies. And she didn't do that, but she may as well had. And I won't worry about putting the milk in the bottle, because I'm just going to let you suck it from my titty. I know I'm not lactating, but I'm gonna work a miracle. Work a miracle for that dick, yeah. Cause y'all know it's as strong and regal and all that as Jax is. She can't help herself but to try to work a miracle for that dick. And be clear, I'm not saying she wants to fuck Ozzy. That's not what I'm saying at all. That is not what I am saying at all. And that's what a lot of people miss about the concept of being a pick-me and having pick-me tendencies and pick-me energy. It ain't always about wanting to have sex with the dick. Often it's about being effortlessly puppeteered by people who have dicks. Oh, boom, tick tock. Alright, yeah. So, like I said, she go tuck him in bed and she tell Cash to stay there and be security. Good. He's a lawyer. Honey, is he getting paid enough for that? I guess he is. He getting honored and shit. He getting banquets and shit. Okay? He taking folks credit and shit. He might as well also double as security. Okay? Top flight. So, she go in the room, FaceTime Lewis. He don't answer. Because Tony advises him that if she just gonna keep calling and he just gonna keep answering, he might as well go back home. So, he don't answer. Jax pissed. Now, we would expect for her to go sit on what Cash got, okay? But she don't. She just goes sit on the floor next to him in the hallway. Howsoever, I also feel like her allowing them to stay there for the night was both her trauma bonding with your boy, because, you know, she was in her feels. And so, like, Remick, worked his vampire skills. Ozzy worked his vampire skills on her and latched on to a part of her that was longing for some healing and comfort and fellowship. And she got lost in the sauce with it, honey. And I feel like it was kind of her way of having a soft lick back. Whereas I'm not gonna, you know, be friendly with my pussy. Okay, shout out to Monique. Not gonna be friendly with my pussy. Howsoever, it's enough for her ego to just say that, well, you over there spending the night with another woman, I'm gonna be over here spending the night with two men. Okay? You ain't fucking. It ain't no problem. We ain't fucking. So it shouldn't be no problem. I feel like in her twisted, unevolved, Virgo, egotistical mind, that's a part of it. It's a soft lick back. And I ain't gonna lie, looking at Cardi B, shout out to Cardi B, but looking at Cardi B, that's a safe lick back. Hell, looking at Lewis. Okay? She ain't gotta look at Cardi, she can look at Lewis. And see that this soft lick back might be the better one, howsoever. Good. Your baby is there. You see how she just disregard Naima? I feel like if Spencer was at the house, she wouldn't even did all that. She'd be like, he not gonna be here influencing my son. We're gonna put you in a hotel incognito, da 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 da. But nah, Naima there and she just don't care. She's like, child, Jax. Much like Tommy over there in the other scene, You just almost got me so tongue-tied. And when I get tongue-tied like that, it's because I want to jump through the screen. Either because I'm so excited or because I'm so upset. I want to put hands and feet on you. But I digress. So yeah, she gonna sit down next to him. She just put her head on his shoulder. He like, you alright? She said, yeah. Okay, in the midst of this, she getting flashbacks of the reveal of the affair and the baby and all of that. Also, flashing back over to Lewis and Tony, they having their own flashbacks. Lewis is healthily, doing his thing, reminiscing, about his planning and mental preparing for the baby and all that good shit. Tony is reminiscing, and granted, they don't show what Lewis is reminiscing about. I would assume, however, that, and this is cool too, right? As I say this, I feel like the flashback that Jax was having is also a flashback that Lewis was having. I feel like that was a interconnected flashback. And that being said, wow, I pointed out he and Tony get like spiritual and emotional gratification from each other, I do feel like he and Jax have a mental telepathic connection that parallels that. So yeah, that being said, Tony is having flashbacks of the several conception sessions that she and Lewis had. They are hot, honey. They are hot. And I love the song they chose. I believe it was Worst Behavior. So yeah, honey. Like I said, they were hot. I don't know if they beat out the one between him and Jax on episode 1 for me or not. But they were hot. I'm glad we got to see those as well. But yeah, honey. So she having them flashbacks, and they are bonding over what me and Lewis thinks is, a silver lining in their grief of mourning the baby. But then she tried to kiss to get to fucking. And he like, whoa. I just came to dance for y'all. That's it. Y'all, she crashed the entire fuck out. Okay? Snatched the paper up out her head, up out her pocket. Aggressively signed it. Cussed him the fuck out. So he can get the fuck out. Okay? Because he don't give a fuck about her. He don't give a fuck about the baby. He never did. He's a little puppy. He can get to stepping. Okay? Let me also point out that the actress did a damn good, magnificent job on her monologue. I also love the vocal variety that she gives her character, as well as, so amongst her giving the vocal variety, there is also an intent variety that I feel like is given as well. And not so much so as like, when I say this line, I'ma say it to hurt him. And then when I say the next line, I'ma say it to love him. Right? It's more so like finding the multi-dimensions of an intent and breaking it down and spreading it out like Lindsay Lohan did that tiara on Mean Girls. And in the best way, because as Tony has been being built up throughout the seasons, and all of this happening, and it getting to this point where she does this monologue, there is a rightful range, roller coaster range of emotions goings on. And she ebbs and flows that motherfucker so musically. That's why I said the way that Cash Doll delivers her lines is not a problem, whether she's doing it by accident or on purpose. Because I feel like Tony did, her own individuality of that in her delivery and performance of this monologue and this scene as well. And so I describe it in such the way as that when it gets to the point in a roller coaster that is going up that big ass steep ass hill, which is high, which is really, 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 really stupendously Grand Canyonly. I think whatever the highest building or mountain or whatever it is. It's high up there, okay? You get to the highest point of the hill in the roller coaster, okay? That drops you down for the rest of the hoo-ha, woo-woo-woo. This roller coaster don't just drop you down for some woo-woo-woo. It drop you down and crash and burn you like Final Destination. And I mean that in the best way, because the subject matter is of crash and burn energy. Because leading up to this, and as I said many times before, it's very easy to just be annoyed with Tony, especially if, and it's no tea, no shade, but especially if you're the type of person that doesn't know or gets lost in the sauce of excessively rooting for the main character. It's very easy to feel like, oh, Tony is just in the way, like, she needs to get over it, da 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 da. But no, like, what the fuck she experienced was fucked up. It was like literally fucked the fuck up. And the monologue itself, yes, is written to a T, straight up. It respects the nature of the situation and circumstance and emotional, mental, psychological, spiritual state that Tony is in. And it is also fruitful and multiplied in the life that is brought to it by the actress's performance, okay? So that's me giving her all her snaps. All her snaps. Alright? Because I'm also finna get on her ass, right? So I want to give her snaps because she deserves her snaps. Period. Okay? Also, I'm finna get on Tony's ass. Okay, I'm finna get on Tony's ass. Because I feel like Tony, of course, is not acting in her right mind. Very understandably so. Because much like Jax was talking about, she's trying to be rational in the situation. More so rational as you can be, because the situation is not rational. And that's a part of the accountability that Jax is supposed to be taking. Realizing you're wrong, where you went wrong in the first place. You thought all that shit that you was on was some shit that you was supposed to be on. You thought that shit was normal. You thought that shit was cool. You thought that's how it was supposed to be. Or you had normalized the chaos. You, in certain ways, still kind of have a hard time finding peace in peace. You know? Okay? And so, similar, okay, paralleling Tony in such the way, ma'am, as much as this whole situation is fucked the fuck up and losing the baby was totally, out of your control. What was in your control was not fucking on married men. A harsh reality is infidelity is a harsh reality. Amongst that, when people commit infidelity, bad things happen. Amongst when people commit adultery, terrible, terrible things happen. Amongst, yeah, we have the spiritual responsibility to ourselves to honor a moral code, to have a moral compass, core values. Amongst, when you get married, as I often say, the wedding is a ritual. When you get married, that is a ritual. Spiritual, love, legal, binding, celebratory ritual. Therefore, whatever you stand before God, the God that is within you and the God that you perceive externally, whatever you promise, swear to before God, honey, you have to honor that. And I did my research before speaking on this topic because this is a sensitive subject and I want to be very clear. I re-looked over a plethora of spiritual texts, honey. And the multitude of them agree that everyone who knows about the marriage is responsible. Let me be clear, okay? So, how a lot of people like to try to cake around it and all of that and be like, oh, the external party don't owe the other woman, don't owe the wife nothing, don't owe the husband nothing, da 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 da. If you knew a marriage was going on, you are responsible. Being led astray and groomed and abused and all that other stuff is one thing. But knowing that a union is going on, or unions are going on, and participating in the adultery of it is honestly, I'm trying to think of the best word to use. Spirit is saying an abomination. And that is how a lot of spiritual texts describe it. That is how a lot of spiritual concepts deliver it, that it is an abomination, that it is one of the worst things that you can do, and some form of death is inevitable. So, let me break it down. Because does that mean that if you fuck on a married man, you're going to get pregnant and your baby going to die? Absolutely not. That is not what that means at all. I would not ever even believe such a thing. So, Jax and Lewis were open at the time. Yes. How did this start though? This started from adultery that was also pedophilia. And I'm speaking to what Jax's warped reality is rooted in from her stepdaddy. Getting it all the way up into her introducing the extracurricular activities into their marriage. That is something, while she herself as Jax could very well be into what would you call it? Different colorful forms of sex. The roots which she was acting upon it was coming from a warped place, a corrupt, tainted, adulterous, and, foul roots. being what happened to her. So, by way spiritual texts describe it, when infidelity and or adultery shows up in relationships and or marriages, both parties are betraying themselves and or committing infidelity to themselves on an individual level already. Therefore, end up bonding over that individual infidelity that they have been carrying on with themselves, and it manifests and or alchemizes and or conceives into the materialization of such. So to put it in simple terms, before anybody starts putting dick in pussy, both parties are already betraying themselves in some form of way. So, to speak directly to this situation, Jax was betraying herself by dishonoring her truth about her abuse, dishonoring her femininity. This Jax rejects her femininity, rejects her pussy, rejects empathy and compassion for femininity, her feminine side, all of those things. That's a form of dishonoring herself. It's operating on a frequency of self-hate, therefore inevitably a frequency of self-harm, therefore inevitably betraying oneself. If she is holding most of the cards and the strings in her marriage with Lewis, she introduces this thing into their relationship, gets out of hand, she almost gets killed. All these other things, out of guilt, she impresses upon him that he can have a past and go, quote unquote, get his lick back. Now, Lewis betrays himself by acting outside of his moral code. That's not in his nature. That's not how he rolls. That's not truly how he is. He doesn't, step outside of his marriage and do all of these things, but he did it because Jack said it would be something that would be best for their relationship. But he dishonored himself and his own individuality amongst Jack's already. Okay? And they have already had this habitual cycle and functioning in their marriage of dishonoring themselves individually. Okay? Whereas Jax does what she does and Lewis just goes along to get along for the most part and saves her from herself and variations of herself in darker forms. Things of that nature, right? So then we get over here with good old Tony, who's betraying the shit out of herself, sleeping with a plethora of married men and women. Okay? So yeah, Lewis had a hall pass, but him acting outside of his nature, him acting outside of his personal moral code, was an infidelity to himself. Therefore, that hall pass, it wasn't real. It was delusion. It was built on a lie. Shout out to Remick from Sinners. And so yeah, all of that alchemizing betrayal of selves, all that alchemizing self-harm and self-hate, and then was conceived a baby. And several deaths happened, figuratively, and then literally with the baby. Certain parts of Jax had to die and is in the process of dying. As I've said before, it's like she's going through an ego death throughout this season. Lewis, certain parts of him seem to be dying as well as rebirthing, as well as there seeming to be a realization that some part of him died off long ago. And this death of Jaden and his ability to face the grief of it is allowing himself a rebirth and a re-enlightenment. And I really hope that we get to see that with Lewis this season as well. And then, child, so this is where we get back to like the spiritual concepts, the spiritual text of it all. Because all children are blessings, right? Children are always blessings. thing is, blessings are not always in the form that we want or expect them. Now, are they? So, as was stated, as many of the spiritual texts, most if not all of them spoke to when adultery is committed, death is inevitable in some form. And in some form is really an understatement, because even if it's one particular type of death, whatever that particular type of death, it will hit on multiple dimensions. So this could be in the form of the marriage dying. This could be in the form of the individuals dying inside, and therefore like becoming hollow shells becoming hollow shells or shelves of themselves, if you think of in the concepts of they end up being self-depleted, having nothing else to offer, depleting their own resources one way or another, where whether they become, drug addicted or stupendously depressed and end up neglecting all of their responsibilities and losing everything, or they end up giving away everything out of guilt, or they develop, some sort of addiction or something, and they end up selling everything. Like I said, things of that nature. Also, I kind of touched on it in that part, but specifically speaking, could be major blows to finances, which could come in the form of having to pay alimony, having to pay off, major lawsuits, fines, stuff going on with vehicles, home stuff, losing homes, things of that nature. Fatal blows to major human needs and desires, right? And so this can also come in the form of literal death. And I know that this is hard to hear. I know that this is like a lot of things that people don't want to hear, people don't want to admit, people don't want to talk about. People want to come up with any and everything to downplay not just infidelity, but adultery specifically, downplay marriage, and the spiritual concepts of all of that amongst the most high dimensional consequences of those things. And given the nature of my channel and what we do and what we talk about over here, major obligation to handle especially this particular aspect of this show and this story accordingly. And so as I was saying with that, another aspect that they spoke to is that another form of inevitable death that can come from adultery as a consequence of adultery is death. And of course, historically, there would be human beings that would, and governments and such, right, that would take these things into their own hands. But that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the wrath of God. That's what I'm talking about. Just to put it in simple terms, because dealing with the spiritual concepts of adultery, it integrates consequences that are punishments and the concept of karma. Because as I often communicate, and as it is, karma is not a punishment system. Karma is a sum up of events, a sum up of decisions that create results. In other words, as I often say, karma is your shit catching up to you. Karma puts you in a position of, if you don't like where you are, stop taking yourself there by way of the habits that put you in that position in the first place, and or the belief systems that put you there in the first place, or the lack of belief systems that put you there in the first place, right? And so then punishment is, you did this, and so to make a point and deliver a message, this now has to happen. And again, I'm speaking to the wrath of God, in which usually happens in such the ways, much like miracles from heaven, miracles from God, blessings from God can happen miraculously through divine intervention in ways that are totally out of our control and unexplainable, right? And the wrath of God can happen in that same way. Okay? So, speaking directly to the situation that we're dealing with in this show specifically, I perceive the communication amongst, the research that I did before delving into really forming an opinion on this particular part. I do feel like Jaden is a part of their inevitable death. And I feel like he is that multidimensionality of the literal and the spiritual and or figurative, whichever word you decide to use. And I also feel like it's both karmic and punishment. I feel like it's punishment for Tony. And I feel like it is karmic when it comes to Lewis. And I feel like it's both karmic and punishment when it comes to Jax in particular. And the reason why I feel like, speaking specifically to this situation dealing with on the show, as it concerns, the spiritual concepts and my interpretation of them and all of that, I feel like it's written to be somewhat of a punishment to Tony because of the way that she was using the baby. Both as it was baking in her, as well as in his death. I also feel like something sinister was going on in her for her to be habitually sleeping with married men and women in such the way. There were things also that she communicated to Lewis in her monologue that she may also have a similar dissociation from Hattie, her daughter, that Jax has with Naima. I be wanting to call that girl everything but Naima. And to that, other spiritual concepts that speak to, again, the treatment of children, and even more so when they are your children, And so again, that being said, I feel like that's a part of why it's set up in this particular situation. It's set up where the death of Jaden is both a punishment to Tony and a punishment to Jax. Jax doesn't see the punishment in it yet. But the way that that's about to affect, in the way that it's already impacting Lewis, is killing Lewis on the inside, especially because she does not give him room to grieve. And it's also the fallout and the way that she's handling it, amongst what it is. It's also killing her kids on the inside. And all of that shit is killing her family from the inside out. And when she look up and see that shit, it's going to fucking kill her. Again, these inevitable deaths as a result of all the adultery. And I know it'll probably be some people like, how the fuck do the spiritual concepts tie into this show about lawyer shit and da 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 da? You reading too deep. Does karma not align with justice? Justice, lawyers, court shit, guilty, not guilty, compasses, belief systems, all of that shit parallels. In case you didn't know, because I know my sunshines and sunnies understand the assignment. But just in case just in case there were a few that needed some blanks filled in. Most certainly. Yeah, yeah. Spiritual concepts of justice most certainly parallel and juxtapose the legal concepts. And I'll stick a pin in that right there. And we'll proceed to get y'all what y'all need. And so, all of that being said, as much as we can give compassion to Tony, very much so rightfully, it also very rightfully has to be to an extent because she's not a good person. This situation can allow her to be a good person, and that's a part of the spiritual concepts of it as well, amongst the spiritual texts and whatnot that I looked over and researched before coming at y'all with the shit. Anywho, but yeah, they also spoke about opportunities for repentance and rebirth, and how the deaths are necessary for the sake of rebirth. Those who will willingly, use their free will willingly to embrace the rebirths and therefore embrace the repentance for the rebirths. It is there. It is harsh. It is dark. It is hard. Absolutely. Though there are opportunities for redemption if people involved are willing to face their shit, face their shit and take it for what it is, own up to it, okay? And the only person I see doing that straight up in this whole equation is Lewis. And so I leave that at that on Tony for now. We're going to see what ends up happening with her. But also, I want to shout out to Lewis because I do think it's beautiful that all the while he did not allow himself to be manipulated, he also still honored himself, okay? He stepped back into the truth of himself and his own power and who he is, okay? And he embraced her and gave her the compassion that she needed and deserved, and in certain ways was rightfully owed from him. I also feel like in certain cases, he had to fill in certain blanks from other people as well, because I feel like Tony was corrupted, much like Jax was corrupted along her way in life type shit. Whereas, again, I feel like Tony is another woman that Jax lacks empathy for when she should be seeing more of herself in her, right? However, I get it on both sides because both of them are some interesting cookies to crack. But before I proceed to continue to give you R&B motherfuckers what you need, I wanted to elaborate a little further on what I mentioned, tapping into the aspect of babies and children always being blessings, because I feel like that has to be touched on given the topic and given the nature of the topic as well. And so in that, it's important to always remember that blessings don't always come in the form of instant gratification. They don't always come in the form that we expect them in. And that literally fits the nature of children and having children, even the conception and baking of children. I say baking as in reference to the process of pregnancy, right? Every pregnancy is not always smooth or predictable or things of that nature, but at the same time, there can be pregnancies that are smooth and predictable. Just like there can be children that are born and come out exactly as you expected them to be, exactly as you wanted them to be. You may still have your challenges, but they're predictable for you. They're easy for you, But oftentimes, that's not always how shit goes. And I feel it important to emphasize also that as hard as it can be to see and embrace, whatever the blessing is that you end up finding in the journey, or, whoever ends up finding in the journey of their loss of a pregnancy or loss of a baby, of a child. One size don't always fit all. And so, as it concerns specifically speaking to the specific circumstance of the circumstance that is going on in this show with these characters, and based on my understanding of my spiritual competency amongst the research that I did before tackling this particular element of the topic, I perceive that the conception, the birth, and the death of Jaden is both a blessing. As in, his life was a blessing, and his death was also a blessing. Not for the reason that Jax may think that his death was a blessing, because Jax and the liking mentality may see his death as a blessing because they feel like they don't have to deal with him anymore. But I perceive his death as a blessing because now you most certainly have to deal with him. You have to deal with him in a way that is omnipotent, for maybe lack of better terms, in a way that will haunt her. And I don't say that, as a form of punishment. I say that as a form of, it's very, very clear that your shit is catching up with you. Go ahead and acknowledge these truths. And a lot of the times, that's where a lot of people, parents specifically, fuck up their blessings and fuck up their karma, because they perceive the concept of children always being blessings as children are born for them, that the children are born to just satisfy and cater to whatever it is that the parent needs, or what the parent expects, or what the parent thinks ought to be the truth. But no, children are blessings in the form of being fruitful and multiplying in the way that they will inevitably come with new information and old information that you try to bury, new information that you've never heard of, and it might scare you. You may have been taught that quote unquote new information was something that you were supposed to attack, and you forget that those children are still children and they are innocent, and that you are supposed to embrace them for the sake of understanding, not dismiss them. And so now Jaden is in a form where he cannot be dismissed. He cannot be dismissed, certainly not in the ways that they are used to. Therefore, the truths that are the roots of his conception and his birth also now cannot be dismissed. So yeah, the case might be dismissed at this point in a legal sense, but in a spiritual sense, absolutely not. And that's some divine justice for your ass. Now, reiterating once again, but I'm speaking specifically in reference and to this situation in this specific show, and my interpretation of the story that was presented to us by the writers, and my competency of how I do my work over here, which is I educate and entertain artistically and esoterically, honey. And most certainly, if you've been on the lesser end of infidelity, adultery, and or you've lost a child or pregnancy or anything of that nature, I wholeheartedly bid you in all ways, extensively and everlastingly, light, love, healing, and liberation to the spirits of your child and or children, as well as you and all of your and their true loved ones. So, to wrap up on this scene, after Lewis embraces her and, shows her that compassion and everything, she basically ends up pushing him off of her and walking out the room. So then we transition to the next morning. Jack's in the hallway, still, sitting on the floor next to Cash and whatnot. Wakes up to a phone call from Chad, which is her colleague. And he lets her know he got some news, he got some updates on the case. And she like, good news or bad news? And he said, honey, it depends on whose side you on. And my bad, that ain't Chad, that's that other dude. Either way, they both her colleagues, honey. They both her colleagues that are on kind of like opposing sides, but they have to play a neutral part all at the same time type shit. So yeah, like I said, first buddy called her with the update of what they found. Then we flip back to her house. Ozzy is waking up that morning and she gotta give him the lowdown, which is, honey, they done found Wendy's body, the bullet that killed her, and the gun which the bullet came from, which so happened to be owned by him, all by his cabin. So now he yelling, no, 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 stick to the stuff you know. And this prompts Naima to come out the room and basically be like, yo, is everything cool? What's going on? Jax, politely for once, tells her everything's fine, baby. You just go ahead back to bed, okay? So Naima goes back to bed and she props up next to Ozzy and she like, I know this is a lot and I'm so sorry about Wendy, okay? But with your police interview and the location of Wendy's body, your connection to the gun and all that, you will be arrested for Wendy's murder, okay? He started freaking out and whatnot. She like, honey, woosah, take a breath, all right? We finna go down to the DA to negotiate your arrest. Listen, okay? And boom, TikTok, your boy puts on his strongest infantilism. Don't get me wrong. Drastic situation, right? If he really did not do this and don't have no connections, then he just found out that his girlfriend is dead and she's been killed and he being framed. So that's a lot, okay? All the while, I'm just peeping these little isms. Okay. Just peeping these little isms and also how they work on Jackson away. Okay. But yeah, he is quite infantile regardless. And of course, that is also due to how his family has treated him, as well as how the nature of his work-life balance or lack thereof throughout his life, and that happening in childhood and all of that shit. So your boy, once again, his head is fucked the fuck up. Okay, so she soothes him and all of that, tells him take a breath, okay. Instead, let me call Bill and I'm gonna have him, because he started telling her don't go, basically like a little boy talking to his mama, don't go, please don't leave me, please. James Brown with it, okay? And so she like, look, I'm gonna have Bill go down there and negotiate the arrest. Alright? We're gonna try to do this real discreet. Just give me a second. Shit. Fuck. Damn. Nah, she really got a whole lot more than what she was asking for. So we flip on over to Bill. And now he's over there talking to Chad. And Chad is the light-skinned man that can easily be mistaken for a white man in very dim light. Okay? And I feel like they are intentionally playing on that as well. Much like how I feel like they intentionally play on certain other color struck dynamics, the way people show up in their race and their skin tones and as their phenotype and the prototype of it all, things of that nature. So yeah, and I'm gonna explain how I see it play out in this scene as well. So like I said, your boy Tommy Bill goes over there, he negotiating with Chad. So he's saying, we know that manslaughter be off the table, at this point, okay? The way that everything lines up, the way that, the evidence that we do have, okay? So you're going to have a hard time proving that Mr. Edwards intended to kill beyond a reasonable doubt, all right? He and the victim been knowing each other for years, dating for years. He ain't got no record of history of violence or none in the legal system and whatnot. So this could easily be a domestic violence case that got out of hand, okay? That sounds more like second-degree murder, not first, all right? Let's bring it down. Bring it down. Couple notches, alright? And Chad is like, cool. That'll be just like I like it. Real fair and real easy. Alright? And so Bill is like, it won't be easy, but check this out. Me and my co-counsel Jax, we need y'all to show up in an unmarked car, okay? Lead them through the back, no handcuffs. Chad say, absolutely not, my dude. Your client may think he's special, but you don't get special treatment when he's being under arrest for murder. We don't care who he is, who his folks is, where they stay, none of that. Nathaniel, okay? So, in this, real quick with the eyes, right? Real quick with the eyes. We know every time Bill step into a room, when he's stepping out, when he just sitting there, your boy is like an owl or something with these damn eyes in his neck and his head and everything. Just seeing every motherfucking thing, including his pictures. He made the quote, simplify. I believe that's the Marines. Don't get mad at me if that's wrong, but I believe that it's the Marines. I believe so. It's something to do with the military, if I'm not mistaken, okay? So Bill points that out. He about to use this as leverage. He said, my dude, you's a devil dog. Uh-huh. And he said, yeah, you served. He said, I was DSF in the Coast Guard. And if there's one thing someone who has taken orders understands, is power. Now, let me tell you what I feel like just got clocked here, okay? So, we got a white man and a light-skinned man here in this field that is predominantly white male dominated, right? So this very light-skinned man, while he's still black, okay, while he's still a man and he has leverage in the social hierarchy that's going on around there, he is still black, okay? All the while, he still does have some extra leverage because he's male, but also because he all light-skinned it and stuff, and he got light eyes on top of it. And, all the other, sleek-esque features that, fit that thing, you know what it is, that thing that satisfies the simpletons, okay? So that being said, here we have them here doing a negotiating thing. It is a tug of war for power, all right? So both of them are making power plays in their own way. Yeah, we're gonna have the upper hand, right? Because as times are shifting, you may notice that the hetero white male phenotype and such, especially blonde hair, blue eyes type shit, and that being the face of, the greater good and wealth and things of that nature, that is very much so changing. And from my perspective, I'm noticing it shift to, it's weird because it's as if light-skinned people are becoming their own race, and I'm not sure exactly who's doing that or what that is about. But I've been noticing it, and I feel like there are instances of it. I feel like there are instances of it and elements of it in this scene where they are battling to see who is going to be the big white man with the biggest dick in the situation, okay? So we got Chad here playing on Tommy Bill's top, okay? He like, I'm gonna give you a little, and I'm gonna also flex on your top about it. And Tommy then come in talking rhetoric that has to do with privilege. That's very layered rhetoric. Chad then pops back and it's like, listen, I don't care what type of special shit y'all got going on over there, but we ain't doing all that privilege shit. Which I feel like is interesting. Because Chad, being who he is, having the phenotype that he does, very much so has gotten some elements of that privilege that he's talking about, wanting to withhold. Right? So then we have Tommy Bill clap back with, oh, okay, so you had some real strong rank in the military. So Tommy Bill makes a power play in the form of submission by saying, one thing someone that's used to taking orders knows about is power. Flexed on his top real smooth and incognito, like real stealthy and shit. Like a cat. Cat will make you think they're submitting. Cat will make you think they pussified AF whole time. They just waiting on the right time. The prime time. He like, yeah, so yeah, one thing I know about is power, being in position to have to take orders like something. So then he follows up with, you gonna want to know more about that when you planning on running for DA. He like, hold up. You see a baby coming to you, what's the hold up? How you know I want to run for cussing off, okay? And Tommy Bill follows up with, look, in order to get elected to higher office, you're going to need money from rich and powerful donors. The kind of donors that don't want to see people like them treated as anything less than first class. See, the average person ain't going to care if Oz is led through the back as long as he's arrested. But if you drag him through the door for TZT and the internet mob to see, then potential donor Michael, who the fuck ever, is gonna think the next time Junior gets a DUI, oh, how embarrassing would it be for his family's news to be splattered all over the TV screens. All because their DA treated their beloved child like any criminal on the street. Maybe he'll just donate to a friendlier DA contested. Not DNA. It ain't that type of party. So yeah, after he lays that on him like that there, he said, nah. That being said, how you think Ozzy should be arrested? So they come to an agreement, throw it over to Jax. Jax goes over, throws it over to Ozzy, but she tell him first, let's breathe, okay? Inhale, exhale, inhale, real good. All right, now we've negotiated your arrest. The LAPD has agreed to do it here. You're gonna be charged with second-degree murder, all right? An unlawful killing of another person is done with malice and forethought, but without premeditation. That's what that means, all right? So he like, what the fuck? I understand, right? So she like, look, Ozzy, it's more shit coming. Lock in, all right? Okay? They're going to let me know when they're 10 minutes away. They're going to pull into the garage. They're going to do it all discreetly. They're going to confirm your identity. They're going to handcuff you. They're going to define your charges and inform you of your rights. You're going to nod. You're going to say yes, and that is it. Once at the station, your belongings will be taken from you. You're going to be fingerprinted. And they're going to search, honey, every single inch of your body, and you're going to be photographed, all right? That's your mug shot. It's embarrassing, humiliating, but it is also temporary. And what you going to do while it's all happening? We know we're not calling Ghostbusters, all right? What you going to do? He looks over to Cash. Cash give him the signal. You're going to breathe, honey. He clock it. Breathe, all right? Breathe. Breathe again. Breathe again. All right? All right. So, Jack say, good, got it. She got a bail bondsman that's already working on his bail. All right? And he going to escort him out once he released. And she tell him he got 27 minutes before his life changed forever. He need to go take a shower. She going to fix him something to eat. He needs to pray and do whatever else it is to get his ducks in a row, his mind right, to go do what he got to do. All right? So, they agree on that. He gets up, he stands up real stoically and also solemnly. I know that's a oxymoron, but that's what it's given. And he says, I didn't kill Wendy. All right. But he just like Jax, like I said, just like Jax. He gives this, this posturing. Of course, not like everything is okay, but like he's like totally deflated and just drained from the whole situation. And then as soon as he gets in the bathroom, boom, energy. Burst of energy, and he's frantic, and he got the phone, and he's shaking, and he dialing, and it's all of this, and he breathing, and he panting, and he inhaling, and he exhaling, but not in the calm way, which they taught him, honey. Hyperventilating type shit. All right, and he is calling Alex, and he like, bro, how the fuck are you not answering the phone right now? Where are you? They found Wendy's body. We gotta talk, honey. The fuck? Okay. Shuts the phone off. He just sitting there looking crazy. Now he gonna get up and pay some more. Looking in the mirror and shit. Exhales, jumping around, looking at himself in the mirror. And now he got to rehearse. Now I don't know who he rehearsing for. I don't know if he rehearsing for the legalities of it all, or if he's rehearsing for, his life. This is what he does every day to prepare himself to deal with society. Which is sad, because I feel like there are a lot of people in the world that literally do this, and not just people who are artists, not just people who are a part of quote unquote the industry. And that's kind of why that's why I hate when people have a narrow-minded concept and belief system that, all this weird shit is just Hollywood, all this weird shit is just the industry. No. No, there are several tainted roots in this society that have sprouted severely mental ill people in variations of form like this, where they feel a need to be in the mirror every day in order to deal with society and rehearse who they are, slapping themselves in the face and shit and all. And it's sad. It's so stupendously sad. So stupendously sad. So in this process, we get a montage, and it's hard to tell, of course, the timing of it all. And I believe they intend for that because the senses of reality are fucked up. So he is also in the midst of this. I can see where he's rehearsing for the legal process, because he's saying, like, I understand, officer, and all this and that. So we know that, of course, after he does all of this, they show up, and it goes as Jax let him know. Jax is in a very maternal form. She even got her robe on and everything, like literally even doing this stuff out of her house. And I feel like it's further blurring her sense of reality. Even as he's being walked out, she mouths to him, breathe. And it's all done very much so in a way of like a mother. Like they're coming to pick up her son, not they're coming to pick up her client. And that is very scary and concerning. Extremely scary and concerning. So as he's being hauled off, her and Cash are standing at the back of his truck, and he like, hey, so you surrendered a celebrity suspect to murder without the press getting wind of it. I would say that's a win. She said, yeah, for today, the press conference with the sister and the assistant is just the beginning. And she's referring to Wendy's sister and Wendy's assistant, which is Cash Doll. And her name on here is Nisha, Nafisa, Nisha, Alicia, Maria, Monica, Aaliyah, Tia, Serena, Cash Doll. So, anywho, they continue on their conversation and whatnot. Like I said, she said, honey, all this shit is just the beginning. This finna be a big ass case. Cash is like, look, you asking for my help. She like, I'm not asking for your help. I wouldn't either, honey. He like, unless you want to be, she said, unless you want to be second chair, Period. But nah, I wouldn't let him nowhere near Nathaniel after the way the last shit happened. She already got that white man over there. That's enough at this point. Let's stop the madness, okay? So, child, she like, nah, I ain't asking for your help, okay? And he said, look, I highlight your transcripts, get your coffee, don't worry about it. So he like, look, my heart is in Chicago anyway. All that don't even matter, okay? Legally and romantically, I got to get back to my business. In the process of their little pleasantries and whatnot, he mentions Lewis and her mentioning that there was a baby, but she wasn't pregnant and all that. So he want to check in and see is they good, is she good, and all that. So she said, yeah, we good. We good. He like, good? Keep me posted. He said on the case specifically. Yeah. Yeah, all right. So he walk away and instantly she get a text from Lewis. He like, sorry I ain't called. Trying to get through this as quickly as possible. I'll list that in the third. Honey. So, of course, she ain't really trying to hit it, but she ain't really got no choice. So she just tried to walk away and not stumble. We then transition back over to Tony's house with Lewis, and he's sitting in the nursery. He's steady, assembling everything, going as planned. Which would also make sense why it's taking longer than expected, because he ended up doing it alone after Tony walked out and everything. So he has a moment where he stops and sits and he reminisces while holding the onesie. And he starts boo-hooing and crying, child. It's so sad. It is literally so freaking sad, but also so freaking beautiful at the same time, because he needed this. He needed this release. He needed this space to grieve. Because I feel like also, I talk a lot about Jax not giving him the space to grieve. But even in Tony giving him the space to grieve, she kept also taking it back all at the same time. So I feel like her also removing herself was a blessing in disguise for him, because it gave him the extra space to breathe and grieve and just, go through all of the things that he needed to go through individually for himself. So Tony hears him crying and she steps in and whatnot. And she steps in and she's about to apologize, and then he like stops her and he's like, look, it's okay. Grief does strange things to people. That it does, honey. That it does, child. That it does. Unfortunate. But very fortunate that they are getting to have this moment, child. And he goes forth and he apologizes to her, because he was like, you had to live with this in your house all this time. And I'm sorry about just basically everything, and it coming off so neglectful and being neglectful and abandoning in certain ways. So he asks her, can he keep the onesie? She lets him keep it. That's magnificent. We got Victory Lap by Nipsey Hussle playing overhead, child. And in that time, we transition on over to Ozzy being put on in the system, child. Getting his picture took. We are revisited by them scratches on his chest. We get a flashback over to Jax taking her shower. And they swabbing Isaac, taking his DNA and all of that good shit. Everything going as planned. And as it's going as planned, it's a mirroring too of like what Jax is doing, because as they're swabbing him, Jax is also brushing her teeth. And as they're exchanging his, regular civilian clothes for his inmate clothes, Jax is changing her clothes. She's getting out of her her around the way clothes, her around the house clothes. She's getting out of her around the house clothes, and she's getting into her casual wear, child. So they're showing us straight up that there is an intentional mirroring going on with the characters that are Jax and Ozzy. Okay? And just like that too, like within the next day or the next couple hours, Ozzy is bailed out. He's released, and as he's signing, his release papers and everything, he's also signing an autograph. Tisk. So, like I said, they're releasing your boy, and he is also feeling very bucked up, and I feel like egotistically hopeful by being recognized and asked for an autograph in such the way by one of the officers. So then we get back to the house with Jax. Lewis is getting back to the house. They gotta chat it up about all of the things, and she like, how was your night? He like, it was good. She said she only slept for a few hours. Lets him know they found Wendy's body and all of that by Ozzy's cabin. He was arrested that morning, giving him the whole lowdown. And he like, wait a minute. He was here in our house. She like, yeah, but it was peaceful, okay? Had Cash doing security and all that good stuff. I locked Naima's door and all that good stuff. And he is looking, a bit unstabilized by that. Reasonably so. But she is letting him know the details and everything. Ozzy was on the couch. Cash was in the hallway. She locked all the doors that was necessary. He said, okay, well, damn. He goes ahead and settles down, sit next to a child. He like, a lot did happen. And he realized that he needed that night just as much as Tony did. And it was good to talk about Jaden, say his name, and embrace all of the things that were for him, the nursery, and wonder, how theirs would have looked if they had gotten a chance to set it up. There's a way that he looks at Jax when he says this that's like, kind of like, that's your fault. But he continues on to say, she wanted to take down the nursery and basically just kind of like reminisce and go through the grieving. My gosh. Goodness gracious. Lips, teeth, tip of the tongue. Gosh, so yeah. Basically, went through all the throes and elaboration of letting Jax know that basically she wanted to go through the grieving process together throughout the process of taking down the nursery, reminiscing, and all of that good shit. And he realized that it was everything he never knew he needed. Neo head ass, okay? Beautiful shit. And he gets to the nitty gritty that Jax is waiting to hear, which is, and she signed the contract. Now, this kind of made me want to punch Jax in the face because I want to assume that she was listening attentively to everything that he was saying. But when she responds like, damn, nigga, I was waiting for you to get to the punchline, you know what I'm saying? It gives another one of those moments where he was giving you his heart and you were just letting it fall on the fucking floor because you were looking for something else. Like, you do not give a fuck about this man's feelings. Like, you just care about how all of it is impacting you. Unfortunate. So he then tells her, you were right. She was trying to fuck one more time. And Jax is like, yeah. A woman always knows when another woman wants her man. And he like, look, you ain't got to worry about all that because I am not just your man. I am your husband. And you are my wife. And ain't nothing more realer than that shit. Period. Okay, honey. Okay. So they have their embrace and whatnot. And I find it interesting that now Jax can be heartfelt and whatnot because like he blowing smoke up her ass, very interesting. But anywho, child, so they wrap up there. He's talking about he's starving. He want to go to Coffee and Company and whatnot. But in the midst of them getting ready to get they, moves and ducks in a row, it's a knock at the door. And who it is, Louis go see. Open that door. And it's her daddy. And of course, played by old punk ass Patrick from Being Mary Jane. Tisk. Tisk. Now, I don't know if I had some type of Mandela effect type shit, but why the fuck I thought that we was already introduced to her daddy before and that he was played by Richard Lawson? Am I tripping? Either way, I feel like casting him as old punk ass Patrick is perfect. One, because they have similar facial features, so they can pass for relatives very well as he plays an old self-righteous, indignant, bum, punk ass dude very well. Very, very well. So, shout out to old punk ass Patrick. Hey now. So Jack stepped in and she said, "Hey daddy." Just as surprised as ever, like she done seen a ghost. "Happy Halloween, ho." Absolutely. It's getting scary in this motherfucker. Every time he pop out, it gets scary for these hoes. So y'all already know, just as soon as they got one thing settled, some more shit done sprouted the fuck up. And we gonna see what old punk ass Patrick brings to the fray, honey. Now, in real time, this video is 3 hours. So I believe I done said the multitude of things that can be said about this episode. And then some, okay? It's just one more thing that I want to pinpoint that I didn't in the miss because there was so much other important things going on. I just want to quickly pinpoint the way Naima, in just 2 episodes, and I would have to go back and look at the other episodes to see how that trait might also show up, but Naima going to see Jax to bed, and based on the dialogue, we know that it would usually be her going to see Lewis to bed as he's waiting up for Jax. Also, when children hear commotion going on in the house and they come out like, "What's going on? Hey, is everything fine?" That's an act of protection. That's a sign that that child has been made to feel responsible for the protection of the parents in some way. Okay, and accompanying that with, her seeing them to bed, and that's usually something that parents do for the kids. They see the kids to bed, right? Because, and what I'm referencing specifically is when Ozzy starts to cut up after hearing the news of, what he's up against and everything, and that he's about to be charged and arrested and all that good shit. And he's yelling, and Naima comes out and is like, "Mom, is everything okay? Mom, what's wrong?" She's coming out in a protective nature for her mother. And I know a lot of people think that's normal, but it's not. Like, of course, in a survival, in a drastic survival situation, yeah, some people, including kids, are just natural protectors, right? But when it's a consistency like that, that's a red flag. When the children feel protective maternally or even paternally over their parents, or like, it's a situation like, because when it's a situation where, like, "Little girl, what are you going to do?" You know what I'm saying? That's a red flag. That type shit is a sign that the children are being made responsible for the parents' sense of protection in some type of way. And I feel like Naima has been made to feel responsible for her parents when it comes to emotions specifically. Like when it comes to them being in emotional despair, needing someone to talk to or things of that nature, that's likely Naima's role. And then often the role of that child in the family dynamic is often dismissed like a motherfucker when it comes to certain other things. It's as if the parents then resent them. It's like they start having this power struggle with that particular child, to where, like I said, they feel resentment in moments where the child is being proactive and or being outspoken or things of that nature. So to speak very direct to it, right? Naima is giving the child in the family dynamic that a lot of the adults even go to vent to, for advice, their thoughts and opinions on things, love to be embraced, entertained, and even guided by the early wisdom of the child being wise beyond their years, and or the child being outspoken and outstanding and things of that nature beyond their years. Because that, as I explained earlier, that's also a part of the blessing of children, having children as well, things of that nature. But often these types of children in the family dynamics are drained and trauma dumped on by the adults. And then when they need someone to vent to and they need someone to talk to and someone to have compassion for them, the adults are nowhere around, and or they're being dismissive and disrespectful to them, disregarding, telling them they too sensitive and they need to shut the fuck up. But their sensitivity is what gave you the advice that you were looking for. And so it's like it starts to come off like the adults become and it's a lot of Scandal references that I notice here. You know, the creator was once a writer on Scandal, and I believe Kerry Washington is also a producer on the show. But I'm finna use one of them lines. But it's as if the adults resent those children for making them better. And so it's like, it's very childish, and it's a little hard to explain. But you know how somebody can teach you how to play a video game, and then you trying to play it and you start struggling, and they start trying to like review certain elements that they told you about how to play, and they like, no, shut up, I got it, da, da, da. And you like, damn, I was just trying to help, shit. I was just trying to, remind you of some things that we went through, like, goddamn, okay. And then they snap back like, it's okay, everybody ain't just smart like you. Everybody don't just get everything like you. Everybody don't just know everything like you. Everybody don't just master at the snap of a finger like you. And I feel like that's what Jax in particular gives whenever Naima is being compassionate or just even being regular with her. It's like, girl, I don't need you checking on me. I don't need you doing this and that with me. Da, 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 da. But when you having panic attacks, falling out on the floor and shit, and she one of the ones picking you up, then what? You feel me? So yeah, just something that I wanted to point out that I noticed, and I want to see if that, if that particular concept is shown any more, or played with any more, going throughout the season and whatnot. Because I ain't gonna lie, y'all, I think whoever it is laid out in the flow in the room when Jax go in there and have a meltdown and whatnot about whatever horrific sight she saw, I honestly think it's Naima. I think it's either Naima or Ozzy or both. But that's just me, honey. But we gonna see. We gonna see, child. We gonna see. My other thought is Lewis. I ain't heard nobody else say that guess. But yes, my other guess is Lewis. I ain't gonna go too deep into why, but that's my other guess. Yeah, child. But with all that being said, child, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this cow dry. And I am thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe so that you can be one of the first to be back through these queenlet quarters for the next time. And be sure to bless that comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in all ways light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.